guys, welcome to the last part of the mother of all elections. I promise you there will not be a part 6, so you're gonna have to tune in right now for everything as it relates to post-elections and its implications. Now, this is very critical for you to understand that 3 months after the election, we have not had a result as yet that we can say yes, this is the government that will be that will be put into place. I can tell you for now, majority of the country, or most persons in the country, or some of the persons in the country, are of the opinion that President Granger should be sworn in by now, based on the fact that the commissioner of GCOM is currently in possession of a report, actually in possession of 2 reports by the CEO, which both has an APNU AFC victory, in as much as the numbers of 2 reports might be different. So there are some little skepticism as it relates to the whole presentation of the report by the CEO and the declaration that should be made thereof. So we're going to get to the meat of the whole conversation in a while. On the day of the election, from a voter standpoint, it was smooth sailing. I didn't have any problem. The voting process was very good for me. I think it was well put together. I was observing the place as I was voting, and I was looking to see if there's any way this system of voting could be breached, because y'all know me, I always scheming. Nevertheless, it was I don't know what happened in other regions or at other polling stations, but I voted at the Linden Foundation Secondary School in Linden, and it was quite smooth sailing. I don't think Linden is the place to start a ruckus on election day, because we is. You know what I mean? Anyways, so it was smooth sailing from there on, and then after the election, both parties was urging persons to only allow GCOM to declare themselves winner, in as much as both parties would have prematurely announced themselves as winner. But when it came to the tabulation of the voting, all the regions tabulated their vote. How they came up with the numbers, we don't know. And then we actually do know, because there are statements of polls to show these numbers, credible or credible not. And then when we got to the tabulation of the Region 4 number, there were some upheaval. The Region 4 returning officer got sick. Tabulation got real heated. He just abandoned the process of tabulating, came up with his own figures, pronounced that APNU AFC would have won based on the figures that he got. And then after that would have occurred, it meant that the CEO was then to prepare a report that would reflect all the numbers that would have came in, and then upon the commissioner for her to declare the winner of the election, which would have given APNU AFC the victory. However, this did not find favor in the opposition's camp. They wrote to I can recall Mr. Nandlal writing to GCOM commissioner, telling her about what's going to happen, also the litigation in play, because there were a legal document filed in the court that was going to air, which actually stated that the presentation of the tabulated votes for Region 4 was not done constitutionally or according to constitutional norm, and because of that, the numbers therein could not have been taken into consideration. And then also, so there was that, and then in the meanwhile, the opposition and the incumbent government had agreed upon a diplomatic memoir that would see the CARICOM high-level team who would have arrived on the 14th, who would have been arriving on the 14th at the time, to supervise a recount. So we're going to get to that stage. But in the meanwhile, the PPP camp, they filed what they filed, and then the court ruled that based on what Mingo did, the declaration was not in keeping with the constitution, and it barred the international observer norm that the whole transparency and accountability around the tabulation of these results. It neglected those facts, and because of that, it was unconstitutional. So the numbers could not have been taken. So how are we going to arrive at who's really going to conquer Region 4 number? They actually kind of did try that. I think there was another incident where somebody fought with an APNU representative. It was really heated. I think a ANUG guy walked out of the process. Nevertheless, the APNU government would have agreed to a recount to be supervised by the CARICOM high-level team. Ulita Moore, Miss Ulita Moore, who apparently is a candidate for the APNU AFC, would have filed an injunction. I think it was against the recount, saying that it was unconstitutional. The court then ruled that they didn't find anything in the recount unconstitutional, since it provided transparency, accountability, credibility, and a whole bunch of ability that was added to something of that structure. And then we had a recount process. In the recount process, what was unearthed, at least by persons of the APNU's camp, is that there were a lot of persons that were voting that turned up missing, not in the country, died, and a whole bunch of discrepancies based on sources. Now, this is not my information. I'm giving you sources that I would have found in the media that I know many of you viewers who would have not had the privilege to read or don't really quite understand what you would have read. So these were all things that were flying in the air mysteriously. So they were concerned of dead voters. The Commissioner of Police did came out and say persons were out of the jurisdiction that did actually voted, and a whole bunch of other claims. So that kind of marred the credibility of the information that was going to come out of the recount. And then I think according to the recounted numbers, it had a PVP victory, barring none of the votes were invalid. However, APNU's contention was that there were a lot of invalid votes, given the fact that persons died, persons were out of the jurisdiction, a whole bunch of other stuff. And then after the recount, it was only left for so I'm trying to recall everything that happened. So after the recount, it was then left for the CEO to make his report. And what should the CEO report contain? Should it contain votes or valid votes, and what constitute valid votes? You know, so what are valid votes? In as much as the recount did say all of the votes are valid, were they valid if there were contentions that these persons were out of the country? This is the argument made from persons that are in support of the government side. Don't ask me what I think. I'm just giving you as it is. You actually could ask me what I think, you know. Anyways, I digress a little. So, you know, coming out of that, the CEO of GCOM then presented a report contrary to the numbers that came out of the recount. And in his report, he said he's only going to report based on valid votes. And according to the CEO of the Guyana Elections Commission, the team with the most valid votes was the APNU AFC's camp, who would have, according to the numbers, gained a 33-seat majority compared to the other parties in the minority. So his report had a APNU's, it had a APNU victory. Now, privy to that, I can recall after the recount that the commissioner asked the chairman, based on information in the media, the chairman asked the CEO to prepare his declaration for Mr. Irfan Ali's presidency. We can see that in the media. I hope that we have it up on the screen now for you guys to see it. And you would see things like that. However, the CEO then submitted a report that only had valid votes. After the 33-day recount, everybody was tense awaiting the winner of the election via valid votes or just total number of votes. You know, it's quite a big confusion in the air as to politically intrigued persons like myself, or basically supporters of both parties. What were valid votes? What were invalid votes? Who is to determine that? However, the CEO presented his reports with just valid votes, and he said that APNU AFC would have won they were Miss David, who took the case to the appeal court, who had the jurisdiction or ruled that they did have jurisdiction to hear the case on whether it is two things were ordered in the court of appeal case. One, did they have the jurisdiction to rule on the case, and two, the total number of votes mean total number of votes or total number of valid votes. One, the court did rule that it did add the jurisdiction to rule on to pronounce on the case, and two, that the total number of votes mean total number of valid votes. And on that, the CEO, which is Mr. Lowenfield, would have ruled that APNU AFC won on valid votes, and it is now on the CEO, on the commissioner, to actually declare that result based on the CEO report. I think for me, it seems to be a big confusion as to what is actually going on in GCOM. Is the commissioner ready to accept the CEO report, or is there a friction between CEO report and the commissioner's belief? And what does our constitution provide in the instance where the commissioner does not agree with the CEO report? Is there a redress for that? Could the commissioner could they remove the CEO? If they remove the CEO because he's interfering with a lawful declaration, could they remove the CEO? If they remove the CEO, who then do they apply for the job? And when they take that person in on the job, how then does that person quantify what had just occurred in the election? So I'm thinking, like, what can actually happen if the CEO and the commissioner perspective about an election does not coincide? What is it? It's a lot to take in, and I think this is why Guyanese should be interested in what is happening right now, because it's a politically tense environment, and it's good to grasp everything that can be grasped. So right now, the court has the PVPC candidates and party at large. They would have appealed the decision of the appeal court, taking it to the Caribbean Court of Justice to rule on a bunch of things, two of which is, one, does the CCJ have jurisdiction to hear the case or not? And if they do, would they actually rule that total number of votes just mean total number of votes and not valid votes? And how can you then have an election with results that are not valid, or there are some discrepancies unearthed that you should just neglect? So there's a lot to argue there. For me, I would not want a government to be sworn in and the total number of votes did not reflect the total number of valid votes. And I don't think anybody should want a government to be sworn in just based on total number of votes outside of total number of valid votes. There was actually an election somewhere in Ghana, somewhere in Africa. I think the guy names is Charles. I can't recall his full name. But he actually is regarded as the largest, the biggest rig the world has ever seen. Where in a country with 15,000 voters, he amassed over 200,000 votes. So are you going to accept a government on just total number of votes or total number of valid votes? Because then you also open the floodgate for next election, where one party can cook up and come up with about 500,000 votes, and we don't have an electoral system that opens up itself to over 5,000 electors. So all of these are conversations that we should be having right now. I can tell you, over the last week, I've been having political conversation like crazy. What is going to be the outcome? And I'd just like to reiterate my point. I would not like to have, not that I wouldn't accept, I would not like to know or to have a government in my country and they're not being sworn in on the validity of votes. Now, of course, the argument is, what is valid votes? Can the CEO just determine what is valid vote when we had an entire recount process that had CARICOM supervise it, albeit only 18% of the total vote cast was actually what CARICOM reported on? We just had all of these process and we still can't come up with what is what is really the original count as the valid vote. You know, I actually have a friend who said Guyana problem is really counting. You know, when we had the no confidence motion, you know, it was what is a majority, is two, the 3 or 2 or the 4, and now here we are. We have an election. Can't have a government sworn in. We had a recount, and we still back at the same thing. Whereas we can't come up with a mutually agreed upon number that would suit both parties and would actually declare a winner. And that is where we're at right now. All of us are waiting on the CCJ's hearing tomorrow. It should be streamed. I think all of us should plug in. It's really going to be an exciting piece in the legal framework, not only for the country but for the region at large, the CARICOM region at large. And that's where we're at right now. Once again, thank you for catching up on the election. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember to just put in the comment anything that I would have missed so I can address it at a later date, maybe in a Facebook post or via a WhatsApp post. I don't know, but you know, I wouldn't do a follow-up to this because this is the ending of the 5-part series on the mother of all elections.